Hello, I'm Tony Guida. This is My New York. Our topic today is life after the arena. For 45 years, George Vecsey was courtside, ringside, press box present, watching football, baseball, basketball, tennis, and soccer scrums, and writing elegantly about them all, mostly for the New York Times. After he retired, Vecsey grumbled, "Most of us get our fingerprints changed and move to Boca Raton and change our names." Lucky for us, George Vecsey did not do that, and he'll tell us why next. I am delighted to welcome to our program George Vecsey. It's good to see you.
Anytime. Always good to see you on the tube.
Well, thank you. Was it always your goal to be a sports writer?
Oh, absolutely. It's the only thing I ever knew I could do. My parents were journalists. My father knew sports, and I grew up, the end of World War II, hearing names like Dick Young and the Brooklyn Dodgers and all of that. So I've been in the business since I was a really little kid.
And so how did you affect this making this dream come true?
In a better time for journalism, for print journalism, there were lots of papers and lots of jobs. And my father got me copy boy, entry-level jobs at the Associated Press, at the Daily News, as he did for, our other, my brother Pete and other people and other kids from the neighborhood. He got them startup jobs. And if you could not get run down by the heavy carts being run by the pressmen in the composing room, you survived and maybe you were okay.
You mentioned Pete. It seems like sports writing is the DNA of the Vecsey family. Pete and you, great careers.
Right, and my oldest daughter Laura was a sports columnist in several cities, and David is a good writer, and our third child is a journalist also and a lawyer.
Well, good. The line continues.
I know, it's a family sickness. When they were going to college, I said, now here's a good advice for telling Ben, here's the secret of life, and it wasn't plastics. I said, it's an aging population, and if you're smart, you'll go into something involving geriatrics, healthcare, legal care, something. Don't go into, of course, all three of them did.
Went into journalism.
Yeah, well,
as they say
sickness.
In baseball, you're keeping the line moving. That's good. That's good.
I guess.
So you were at you mentioned some of the papers in Newsday,
right,
and eventually the Times, where eventually you were one of the elite columnists writing the Sports of the Times column. But those early years, I'm thinking of an analogy. Rookies, come up and the first time in the bright lights of the big city stadiums and team. They're nervous and they fumble. As a rookie, how did you handle those early assignments? Were you nervous or a nervous rookie, or did you hit it out of the park?
I wasn't nervous. I should have been. I've seen enough ball players come up in their first day and they handle it different ways. And I worked for Newsday, and I had two great mentors. Jack Mann and Stan Isaacs were my friends and my mentors. They heard me taking high school games over the phone, and they said, this kid knows a little bit about baseball. They really treated me well, and Jack and Stan prepared me. They took me up to Yankee Stadium. They were the dark ages because there was no National League team in New York. So they took me up to the House of Evil and, the Mantle era and all of that. And they showed me how it worked, where the press box was, people introduced me around. Dick Young, whom I knew from childhood, would introduce me to American League managers. Bertie, he's a good kid. So I was, I had my feet wet before I went to cover my first game. But one day, Jack Mann sent me up to a day game after a night game in Yankee Stadium, our regular beat writer, whoever, and I went there and I sat in the dugout before the game with Casey Stengel, and I was so fascinated with Casey. Casey's talking away, and finally he says to me, "Young fella, if you don't leave now, I'm going to have to put you in the starting lineup." And I looked, and it was like 5 minutes to game time. They didn't have security like they do today. All uninformed personnel. Right. Please leave the field. So anyway, but of course, I was all ready to write it, and I'm sure I wrote something, but I missed the story. because that was the day that Casey gave Gil McDougald a rest at third base and started a kid named Clete Boyer. Now, some of the beat reporters understood that this was significant. I didn't pick up on anything, even in the post-game interviews. Nobody made a fuss of it, but I know that I was a step at least behind the beat reporters that day, and probably continue for the rest of my career a step behind.
I'm wondering some of those early, your early interactions with players and what stands out from those days.
Sure. Newsday, where I learned to play the game right, like Don Baylor would say, coming along with the Baltimore Orioles, learning the game. I learned the game at Newsday, learned how to be a sports reporter, learned how to be a journalist, learned how to have pride, don't take free lunches and money from clubs and all of that. That's Newsday ethics, and I really learned my business well from them, and I have to give them a lot. The Newsday that was, not the Newsday that's now. And I was out there, and I had enough sense of myself. We talked to people. We at Newsday, we go down after the game. We have plenty of time. We're an afternoon paper. We ask questions. We interview. So you'd go in there, and you would talk to people. And I found that Mickey Mantle had a reputation for being just a crazy person. Half the time would be funny and nice. He was a good teammate, and you liked him better when you saw him day after day. Roger Maris was a sweetheart in 1960. Talked to you, sarcastic, smart, funny, and he was great. Even when he was hitting the home runs in 61, there was a pack of us. Now 6 became 8, became 10, and he would still stand around and talk until really the last couple of weeks of the season, when out-of-town reporters and columnists showed up. But you learned that people weren't necessarily what the older reporters or outsiders thought of them. And of course, having ball players my own age, guys like Ralph Terry and Tony Kubek in 1960, really good guys. Sure. Al Downing, Jim Bouton, and then later people like Bill Robinson and Ruben Amaro, that ball players, and many of the ball players that I like best, and we're just staying with the Yankees for a second, because it could be Ed Charles and Ron Swoboda with the Mets also. But one of the things I discovered was that the humanity, if you're a reporter in those days when you had even more access to players, and you sort of made the same money, and players even in the 60s thought, gee, if I have a reputation as a nice guy or a good press or a good copy, maybe that's worth an extra $500 at contract time or in the off season. So a lot of players were reasonably friendly to you. So if you tried, if you showed that you cared and listened, you got good interviews. It's a different world today.
It's a very different world, and we'll talk a little bit about that, but I started this program talking about life after the arena. About 5 years ago, you retired, and I wonder, you're at ease with it today. I wonder
you think so?
Well, you seem to be. Maybe not. Tell us about that. I was thinking, was it tough getting used to, and is it still, perhaps?
Well, I knew it was time to go. There was a double buyout, 2-year buyout. I'd hit 71. And I always felt that as long as I could walk faster than the young reporters going up the ramp after the game, that I would stay in it. And I still could, and probably still can. But it was time, a personal reason, and the buyout made it sense. So I was glad to take the buyout, and I was glad from the Times, yep. And I was glad to leave. But on my way out the door, essentially, some of the higher-ups at the paper, like, why is he leaving? They said, why don't you stay on and be a contract writer, be an associate or honorary columnist or whatever the term was. And I did that for 2 years. I wrote quite a bit for them. So I was still getting assignments. In fact, I was sent out of town once or twice. They were treating me as, emeritus, whatever the word was. So for a couple of years, and then they hired other columnists. Thank goodness they moved on, and I don't get as much. But for the first 2 years, essentially, I was still in the mix. And then another thing that saved me was, in addition to having free time, I always said in my farewell column, which I had a lot of fun writing, and bless them, they let me do it. I said, I'm going to emulate my Liverpool Scouser role model hero, John Lennon, and I'm going to watch the wheels go round and round. A wonderful song. People say I'm crazy doing what I want to do, blah, blah, blah. And sometimes it was slow, but I was really busy for 2 years.
Mm-hmm. And then it got slow, as
Right.
it inevitably would. You write a blog, and I was delighted. I was charmed to read in that blog. You talk about this transition, and it was wonderful. You quoted Ray Nitschke. Tell us that story.
Yeah, I mean, there's a double thing. First of all, I was lucky that a friend of mine, Becky Collette in Boston, whom I knew from business, said, "You need a blog. You need to keep busy. You're a writer." So she set me up, and as a mitzvah, set me up with a website. Did all the paperwork. I obviously paid a little fee. So I had a blog, and it was easy to just step right in and write a very personal blog. But there were days I wasn't going on the road. Certainly, I wasn't traveling with teams. I didn't have to know every sport. I didn't have to watch this and that. And I discovered that I had a lot of free time on weekends. Now, the Nitschke quote is, I can't find this. I've looked it up online, and maybe it was in one of the Jerry Kramer books, or I don't know where. But Nitschke not only was a crazy linebacker, he also, I think it's pretty clear, had drinking problem, and he kind of sobered up, got out of the business, saved his brains ahead of the curve on that. And somebody said to him, "Ray, what's it like to be retired?" And he said, "Quiet, man, quiet." And there are times when it is quiet, man, quiet. I mean, on weekends, I didn't have to leave the house at 9 o'clock in the morning to beat the traffic to a ballpark or something, to hideous Giant Stadium out in New Jersey in the traffic with all the drunks drunk at 9 o'clock in the morning heading in. I didn't have to spend a 14-hour day knowing that nothing would interest me from the time I left the house until leaving Giant Stadium at 8 o'clock at night. I turn on the WQXR and maybe hear some good classical music. It was just those lost weekends and things I didn't want to be doing. And that was the quiet. But you know what? It's a wonderful thing.
Yeah, and you say on your blog that you don't really pay attention anymore. You don't watch ESPN. You don't follow sports.
I don't, except for two sports. I follow baseball a lot. I'm a Mets fan. I don't watch Yankee games anymore, but I kind of keep an eye on them. But I do watch most Mets games, or I'm aware of them. Even if I'm doing something else, I'm kind of doing this to see what's happening.
It happens that I am an obsessive Mets fan.
Well, I think,
and maybe we'll do another show on how do we save this team.
Well, yeah, we can come back to that. That's always a hot topic with the Mets. But
and the other
sport I watch is soccer. I'm a big soccer buff. I got into it very early on my return to sports in 1980. I covered 8 World Cups, which is a plug, by the way, for my book called 8 World Cups, My Journey Through
the Beauty and Dark Side of Soccer.
You read it so well.
George's book, you updated it for a paperback version last year. So
in 2015, right, which had the World Cup of 2014 in there, and a lot more stuff on the FIFA scandal. So I was sort of brought it up to date in the paperback as to what had happened, sort of predicting all the things that would happen. But it is fun. I mean, I'm a writer, and what I discovered was, I mean, watching the wheels go round and round, it's a good metaphor, but I don't think John Lennon, except for the time when he stayed in bed for a year or, wandered around New York just to be free, but his head was always going, and he was doing projects. And the same thing for most people who are creative. It's very hard to stop being a writer or even a performer. People who aren't performing, but they're still, they're still in the business somehow.
You mentioned the FIFA scandal, and for someone on the outside like me, certain awareness of sports and soccer, but you were there. You saw all this. Mm-hmm. I find it hard to, given everything that's happened and everything that's been exposed about that organization. I mean, this is. I think back to the Godfather. I mean, this is like the most corrupt organization I've ever heard about. I mean,
I'm sorry.
Go ahead. I mean, like everybody who ran anything said, "I got to get paid. Give me money, bribes." I mean, how did they run? Did they run an organization, or what was the effect on the game? Mm-hmm. With all this corruption.
Okay. They ran a compelling show. the great athletes from around the world. It's not hard to find great soccer players from Asia, Africa,
Right.
South America. So they came. The money rolled into Europe, where the big teams are, of course. But they ran a good show, and the World Cup's a great show. The Euros this summer were a great show. All of that, and yet there were indications that it was an extremely dishonest, crooked business. I got a sense of that in 1982 when Colombia gave up its hosting of the 1986 World Cup. The United States bid for it. The United States couldn't qualify for the World Cup, but they knew they could put on a good show. And Mexico got it. Now, Mexico was qualified to do it. They had run a good World Cup in 1970. They had a better soccer team than the United States, and they had all the facilities. But as somebody explained to me, FIFA can work with Mexico. They're not so sure they can work with the United States because we have, as crooked as we think our institutions are, we have more transparency laws, things built into corporate structure where you have to run bids by and all of that, that FIFA didn't want to deal with them. It was only until a couple of cycles later that they gave the United States a World Cup. And even then, they were very concerned about how much control they'd have. As I began to meet Blatter, I met him first when he was the assistant to Avalanche, who of course is now in disgrace himself. He was a very old man and totally in disgrace for the things he did. Just about everybody I ever met in official soccer has been in disgrace, particularly from the European and Brazilian end of it, or South American end of it. I mean, somebody I met casually who ran the South American Federation, met him on a train during a World Cup in France. He's been busted. He wanted a knighthood for awarding the World Cup. Here's a guy from Paraguay who ran the, and he wanted a knighthood from England if he would give England the World Cup in 2006. Well, it didn't happen, and now he's had his career disgraced. But I began to realize, and this is not the same thing as being a great investigative reporter, which I never was, or really having the facts straight. But I began to realize here, and it affected the way I mean, people in FIFA stopped talking to me or treating me like a friend in the mid-2000s because they knew that I knew something. It's like my wife said about Lance, whom I still like to this day for some bizarre reason, Lance Armstrong. And my wife said, he knows that you know. And some of the people I knew in FIFA who had cushy jobs, PR jobs, or hosting jobs, or the logistics of getting things done, they realized that I was becoming a little more snotty about FIFA than they'd like somebody in the New York Times to do. Not the same thing as busting the story. I have to give a lot of credit to the New York Times today, and while I'm hardly in touch with them and I don't work for them anymore, except rarely, that they have done much better reporting than we ever did on things like FIFA. They have a reporter named Rebecca Ruiz, whom I don't even know. I don't even know where she's attached to. She's on all these sports scandal stories, and then some of their best people, the Joe Drapes and the Jerry Longmans and Juliet and people like Juliet McClure, are doing the good reporting on it. And so the Times has finally gotten on it. When I used to mention soccer to people at the Times, they'd roll their eyes. I had one managing editor, the great Arthur Gelb, who was intrigued by it and sent me off to my first World Cup. But it took a long time, and God bless them, the Times, as you'd expect the world's great newspaper to do, is just doing great stuff on FIFA.
We're talking here to some extent about the darker side of sports and soccer, and of course there are many things we could talk about on the darker side. On your blog you wrote, big-time basketball and football are a disgrace to education. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, sure. I was lucky to go to a small...
we're now in the college realm. Yeah,
I was lucky to go to a small college, community college, Hofstra College back in the day, that had great football and basketball teams. They're still some of my best friends from college, aside from my wife, were athletes there, and they did well. But it didn't take over the place. The school was run by a Shakespearean scholar. And guys got scholarships, but they had to pass. They were in my classes, and if they didn't play that year. To see what happens at major sports colleges, even the good colleges. North Carolina has had a scandal. Notre Dame's had problems. To get 150 football players onto that campus in any given year, the 100 or so that dress and the 50 that are coming and going and waiting and blah blah blah, it's a huge thing. It takes down the image of the school, whether anybody knows it or not. The presidents, I don't think they know it. I think that to become a president of a major football school has become a job where the first thing you have to do, I think somebody once said, I want the university to be a credit to the football team. I believe it was at the University of Oklahoma. But it's true that at those schools, those 20 or 50 or whatever number you want, for them to have great sports, they give up the credibility that they would have in many other areas, that the school season starts and they're playing football games and the boasters are coming in and people are on campus. The message all the way through, the good student who can't get in because there's a dull, normal football player or basketball player who can play, I don't believe that those people should be in. And if there is a team, they should be doing the same work as everybody else. And I don't believe it. What I saw, what I've read about at places like USC back in the day, I found a tutor who did papers and I wrote about her. It wasn't one of my good reporting jobs, or North Carolina or some of the other
papers,
schools.
a tutor who wrote papers
for the athletes.
For the students,
Yeah,
for the athletes.
And she talked about it pretty well. But to see that happening in so many other places, I think it cheapens education. And when people tell me they're at these schools or they work at these schools, I just shrug. I remember our daughter Laura, who's a poet and a sports writer now herself, she did her junior year abroad. She went to Sarah Lawrence College and she did her junior year abroad, that is to say the University of Iowa. And she called me one time from Iowa and she said, Dad, people are going around campus saying, going to Pasadena in a Winnebago. That was the chant, meaning that Iowa had made the Rose Bowl for the first time in X number of decades, and the whole campus was going crazy. I was at the University of Texas a couple of years ago. A good friend of ours teaches there, and I went down to do a couple of seminars. And great place, great. Journalism students are terrific. I mean, you understand what flagship schools are. And I said, gee, what a nice quiet week this is. And students seem so involved. And somebody said, what you don't understand is we have a bye week this week. There was no football craziness going on this wonderful campus.
What you're talking about is, these schools have become, and for many years, they're the minor league, they're the development program for the NFL and for the NBA.
Right.
And it's got to be great for the leagues. It doesn't cost them anything.
Right.
And so, Johnny Smith is a big star at Kentucky basketball, and pretty soon, 1 year and he's out and he can't read, but he's now, a shooting guard for the Sacramento Kings. I mean, it's a system that seems to benefit everybody except the student, or the quote-unquote student.
Yeah, it certainly doesn't help the athletes who come through. On the other hand, if they can make more money from the time they're 19 to the time they blow out their knee at 24, if they can make more money than they ever could have in whatever field they would have gone, who am I to say?
Yeah, you make a good point.
Because I certainly went.
I make a nice living for.
Yeah, I went to Hofstra with people who learned their business. Francis Coppola, Laney Levine, Laney Kazan. They were stars, and you knew it. They graduated. They did. But if somebody left, like James Caan did and Godfrey Cambridge did, just a little bit before I was there, if they left to pursue the dream of showbiz, people would say, God bless you, go do it. You got a chance to be an understudy or be in movies, you go do it. So I understand that. And frankly, I got a job at Newsday in my 8th semester of college, and I was on track, and I did graduate on time. But if I couldn't have, if I'd had to drop out of college to take that job at Newsday, I'm sure I would have done it.
Mm-hmm. Sure. We're talking about money, and the leagues are awash in it. And back in July, there was the NBA draft, and role players, guys who can't even dribble the ball, getting, tens of millions of dollars in contracts. And there was a lot of press about what is going on at these, awful players, not awful, but middling players are getting these huge contracts, and criticism of the greed of the athletes. It kind of struck me that, what about the owners? We never talk about the owners. We don't know how much the teams make because that's never public. And in the NBA, by the way, it's by contract, they have to give 50% of the revenue, what's called basketball related revenue, has to go to the players. It's just kind of an uneven landscape there. We can see everything about the players and how much money they're making and how quote unquote greedy they are, but we never hear anything about the owners.
Well, people used to say to me when I went back into sports in 1980, I verified to myself that indeed athletes were making the salaries that I read about. And people would say, how can there be that much money? And I'd say, well, I'd rather see Reggie Jackson or Keith Hernandez or somebody making that money rather than Steinbrenner or Doubleday and Wilpon, because the money's there. They wouldn't be being paid it. And from what I am told and from what athletes tell me, yes, those are indeed the salaries that they're making.
And we get an idea, perhaps, of what these franchises are worth and what the owners are worth. A couple of years ago, that scandal with the Clippers and Sterling, the owner, and he was forced out of ownership, and that team changed hands for $2 billion.
There's so much money there, and we've seen that written about. Two of my fellow columnists still writing at the Times, Harvey Arreton and Bill Rhoden, wrote columns almost back to back recently about the money in pro basketball. Bill wrote about Oscar Robertson, whom he's known for decades. The nice thing about having a columnist writing like Harvey and Bill, who've been around and have paid their dues, who know where the bodies are buried, who know the athletes and know the owners, that they can talk and get a phone call through to Oscar Robertson. They know, talk to a guy who had to sue, had to go to court to make financial gains. And then Harvey was writing about these athletes dropping out of college to play in the developmental league, but being offered only $20,000 for a season when they could have been in college or could have been working at a more lucrative job. And his point was, why don't they start paying these guys better money and stop leaning on? So these are two very informed voices, almost back to back.
Yeah, that's a really good point, George. I mean, and I not that it means anything coming from me, but you can't read better sports commentary than from Bill Rhoden and Harvey Arreton. And that point about, the NBA has the D League, Development League, and they make, it's like you don't even make a living wage. And I think Harvey's point was, why doesn't the NBA, put money in and develop the kids themselves and stop depending on colleges? But I guess the model works for them.
And I would add that both Bill and Harvey have strong socially informed voices. I mean, Harvey's a working, by his own, I'm sure, definition, working class kid from Brooklyn, Staten Island. Yeah. Bill's a brother from Chicago who played defensive back for Morgan State. They both understand the broader picture here of who the people are who are trying to make a little bit of money, trying to get their share of the pie.
George, this has gone much too fast. We should have bought another half hour from the network so we could go on. But it's a delight to see you. And I urge you, go out and find on Amazon or wherever you shop George's book about soccer, 8 World Cups, My Journey Through the Beauty and Dark Side of Soccer. It was revised last year in paperback. It's great to see you.
Hey, always a pleasure. Always been great to see you on the tube and to be sitting across.
Well, thank you. George Vecsey. And thank you. We will see you next week.